Hey guys, welcome to another video. And in this video, I wanted to talk to you guys about this concept, or this I guess, way of thinking. Essentially just losing hope and having faith and just how important that is. I was on my work or on my I was on my way to work this morning, and this song, I think it's called Deliverance by Kieran the Light came on. And if you guys have never heard of Kieran the Light, I highly recommend that you guys check him out. And so this song comes on, and in the song he talks about how he lost hope but he gained faith or something like that. And so it really just reminded me of how important it is to not always be, so hopeful that we lose faith. Because in this life, it becomes so easy to always hope for the best. And oh, I hope this happens. I hope that happens. But the thing is, when we hope for better things to happen, we're essentially trying to take things into our control, or we're essentially just accepting that no one has control to change your situation or to change something that you would really like to see changed. But when you have faith, you give all your worries to God. And instead of sitting here hoping and stressing, you start to pray, and you just remember that at the end of the day, God performs miracles all the time, every time. And so when we realize that God is truly the one in control, we stop stressing so much, and we can have faith that even if a certain situation doesn't get better tomorrow or the day after, week after, month after, we know that by trusting in God, it will eventually get better. And it just reminded me of so many times in my life where I took matters into my own hands, or I tried to take matters into my own hands. And I would just kind of close my eyes and hope for the best instead of closing my eyes and praying that God give me the strength, that God give me the knowledge, or just the wisdom to get through whatever I was going through. And so it almost reminded me of like hearing that line and reflecting on it. It reminded me of almost like if you're stressed about a situation at work, or you're stressed about the way that things are, done in terms of from an organizational standpoint. If you think that instead of, this things being counted in this order, they should be counted in a different order. And you're talking to the head of operations or the CEO, and you're just complaining to him, but you don't really tell him necessarily what you want changed because you're so focused on, complaining about the things that you don't like, the things that you wish were different. When ultimately, I'm sure that's how God feels when we just complain to our friends, when we just complain to our coworkers, and we don't pray to him, we don't go to him at all. And so hearing that line was just so important and that's why I love listening to Christian music, is because there are just so many gems, so many lines that you hear and you're just like, wow, I mean, I've never thought about it like that. And so it was just a great reminder, because instead of going to one another, we can always go to God, and we don't have to be reliant on other human beings to talk us through whatever it is we're going through. Because ultimately, I was reading, I think it was Proverbs chapter 1 yesterday. And so it talked about how when we want wisdom, we just go to God for that wisdom. We don't have to rely on our own understanding, or we don't have to wait to go through all of these things in life, when ultimately God is the creator and God has all of the wisdom. And so if we just ask God for wisdom, he will grant that to us. And so he will give us that foresight to, be able to understand things a lot better than we would on our own, just trying to go through life and figure things out by ourselves. And so really, that's why I've been trying to make it more of a habit to pray every day, to make that a thing where, whether it's in the morning, whether it's after work, when I get home, but really just practicing that habit of gratitude and not being in that mindset of constantly asking God for things every time that I pray. But when you have this relationship with God where you know that not only can you ask Him when you need His guidance, when you need His wisdom, but you also thank Him for the guidance He's already given you. You've thanked Him for the wisdom He's already blessed you with. Because meanwhile, not everybody or no one knows everything. And that's why we're human beings. Everybody is flawed, everybody makes mistakes in one way or another. And so that's why we all need God. And that's why we shouldn't be so quick to place our hope in other human beings when other human beings are just that. They're humans, they're flawed, they make mistakes. And so putting our hope and our trust in another human being when God is really there to help us and guide us, I'm sure He just feels like we're literally ignoring Him. It's almost like when you were a kid and you were picking teams for, flag football or kickball. And I'm sure God, there are times where He feels like He's the last one chosen or He's not chosen at all, because we get so caught up in how can this person help me? How can this person help me? This person is good at this and this person's good at that. But we forget God is good at everything. And when we trust in God and we work hard, God can help us get better at the things that we once thought that we weren't good at. We might think that, oh, well, I'm not the best at math, but we don't realize that if we put our hope in ourselves, or if we put our hope in someone who can't help us, we tend to remove that faith aspect. But if we work hard, and I'm not saying that if you're struggling in math, that you don't get a tutor, that you don't work hard. But if you're struggling in math, getting a tutor, yes. Working hard, yes. But at the same time, also having faith in God that through your hard work and through your diligent efforts, that God will reward you in the end. And it doesn't just become this thing where it's like, oh, it's only up to me to get through this, or it's only up to so-and-so to be able to help me. Because ultimately everything that we do in life really is thanks, be to God. Because I feel like a lot of people get into this way of thinking where all of the good things happen and they praise God for it, but then the bad things happen, and oftentimes we don't have the foresight to understand why they're happening. And so oftentimes it could be that it takes you failing an exam to start taking school more seriously. And even though in the moment when we fail an exam or we don't do as well as we thought on something, in the moment we might be upset because we, think about ourselves all the time, and we think about how these shortcomings make us feel. But it could be that, as time goes on, you realize, wait a second, that was God's way of giving me a wake up call to say, yo, you need to take school more seriously. I remember after my post-bac program, when I didn't get into dental school right away, and I was really upset because at the time I couldn't understand why, I wasn't going to dental school on my timeline. But I had to understand, and it took me a while to understand this. I'm not saying that, the next day I was fine, but it took me a minute to really come to that realization of, wait a second, the reason that this happened is because God was trying to help me grow mentally and emotionally before I even started dental school. Because what I realized a while later was that I just didn't have the mental and emotional strength that I would have needed to make it through dental school. I cared way too much about what other people thought about me. And so what would have happened if I would have done poorly on an exam, and then I would have had to carry that thought in my head, or, I would have been afraid of people knowing. And so for me, I just realized that it was super valuable because I got to the point where, of course I struggled in dental school and it was really hard, and, but I made it through. And in the process of, struggling and trying to figure out how to study, how to do these things, I would share, inspirational messages in our class group chat just about, where my headspace was at, how I was thinking about approaching certain situations. And not only did it help me, but it helped a lot of people in my class. And so at the end of the day, though, it took a certain level of vulnerability to share those kinds of things with my class. And if I didn't reach that stage, if I didn't have certain things happen to me before dental school, I wouldn't have been vulnerable enough to share those things to help my classmates. When ultimately I realized that that was God's plan. And so even like with this YouTube channel, it's just my goal that at the end of the day, I can share things that I've been struggling with, and, that it helps, at least one person. Because at the end of the day, what I've also come to realize is that when you are making content, when you're doing these things, it's not always about having a video that goes crazy viral and has millions of views. Sometimes it's just about touching one person and having your video help one person. And if this video helps one person, then I know that's a blessing, and that's something that I'm super proud of. And so, yeah, you guys, that pretty much wraps up the video. If you guys stayed for the video, I appreciate you guys. But hearing that line, in that song this morning really just inspired me to really just keep that in mind, to really just lose hope and to have faith and to consistently maintain that faith. Because without, faith, we can do nothing. Without trusting in God, we can't accomplish anything. And so let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. If you guys have heard of Kira in the Light, definitely let me know as well in the comments below. And that wraps it up for this video, you guys, and I'll talk to all of you in the next one.